Chosen one, are you tired of feeling like God forgot your address? Have you been praying the same prayer for years, wondering if your name somehow got erased from heaven's list? Do you lie awake at 3 a.m. with that gnawing feeling that you're running out of time to matter? Stop right there. If you're hearing my voice right now, heaven has been tracking your steps. You didn't just stumble here. God has placed something in your hands, and if you don't move soon, you could miss it forever. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to tell you will shatter everything you thought you knew about divine timing. In the next hour, I'm going to reveal the 3 unmistakable signs that God is trusting you with a divine assignment right now, and why hesitation could slam heaven's door shut on the very breakthrough you've been crying for. But first, I need you to do something. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Just respond from your spirit. Type in the comments or say it out loud right now. I'm ready, Lord. Say it. Because that simple declaration is about to become the hinge point between your past disappointments and your divine destiny. You see, there's something the enemy doesn't want you to know. Every delay you've experienced, every closed door, every moment you felt forgotten, it wasn't God ignoring you. It was God protecting what He's about to release through you. But here's the shocking truth that will rock you to your core. There's an expiration date on divine opportunities. Numbers 14:34 tells us the devastating story of an entire generation who stood at the edge of their promised land and hesitated, just hesitated. And that hesitation cost them 40 years wandering in circles. 40 years. An entire lifetime lost because they couldn't recognize their moment. Right now, someone watching this message is standing at their own edge. Your promised land isn't geographical. It's the calling that's been burning in your chest, the dream that won't die, the assignment that keeps you awake at night. Before I go deeper, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed of faith. Because what happens in the next 59 minutes could be the difference between stepping into your destiny or watching it slip through your fingers forever. God is counting on you. But the window won't stay open much longer. Are you ready to discover why heaven has been preparing you for this exact moment? Why does it feel like God put you on the waiting list while everyone else got called to the front? Why have the last 20 years been filled with more doctor visits than divine visitations? Why do your adult children seem too busy for your wisdom, your grandchildren too distracted by screens to hear your stories, and your church too focused on the young to notice your prayers? Dear chosen one, I see you, sitting there at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering if your best days are truly behind you. Wondering if that fire that once burned so bright in your chest has been reduced to dying embers. Wondering if God has moved on to a younger generation while you've been left to simply exist. But what if I told you that every single struggle you've endured, every door that slammed shut, every dream that seemed to die, every betrayal that left you bleeding, what if all of it was actually God's strategic preparation for the most important assignment of your entire life? You see, the enemy has been whispering lies to you for decades. He's convinced you that your gray hair is a sign of decline when God sees it as a crown of wisdom. He's made you believe your slower pace means you're less valuable when heaven knows you've finally learned to move with divine timing instead of human urgency. He's told you that your season of influence is over, when the truth is, your season of authority is just beginning. Let me take you to the dusty roads of ancient Israel, where an 80-year-old shepherd named Moses was tending sheep, probably thinking his life was over. 80 years old. By today's standards, that's retirement home territory. But God looked at Moses and said, "Now you're ready. Now you have what it takes to face Pharaoh. Now you understand suffering enough to lead my people to freedom." Or consider Anna the prophetess, 84 years old, spending her days in the temple while everyone probably thought she was just a sweet old lady. But when baby Jesus was brought to be dedicated, it was Anna who recognized the Messiah. Her age wasn't her limitation, it was her qualification. She had prayed long enough, waited long enough, hoped long enough to recognize the answer when it finally arrived. And Abraham, God promised him nations would come from his seed when he was 75. But Isaac wasn't born until Abraham was 100 years old. 100. The world would have written him off, but God was just getting started. Your wrinkles aren't signs of wear, they're marks of warfare survived. Your scars aren't evidence of defeat, they're proof you've been in battles worth fighting. Your tired bones aren't failing you, they're carrying the weight of wisdom that only comes from walking through valleys and still choosing to praise God on the other side. But here's what's breaking my heart right now. Some of you are sitting there thinking, Pastor, you don't understand. I missed my chance. I made too many mistakes. I waited too long. God's done with people like me. Stop. Right there. Let me tell you about Margaret Thompson from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. 82 years old, arthritis in her hands, living alone after burying her husband of 58 years. Her children lived 3 states away, called once a week out of duty, not love. Margaret felt invisible, forgotten, useless. She'd shuffle to her mailbox every day, hoping for something, anything that would make her feel like she mattered. One Tuesday morning, she found a letter that would change everything. A young mother from her neighborhood had written, Mrs. Thompson, I see you praying on your porch every morning. My marriage is falling apart, my teenager is on drugs, and I'm about to lose my house. Would you pray for us? That letter awakened something in Margaret that had been dormant for decades. She realized God hadn't put her in that house to die quietly. He'd positioned her there to intercede for an entire neighborhood. Today, Margaret leads a prayer network of senior saints that covers 12 city blocks. Crime rates have dropped. Families have been restored. Teenagers have found purpose. All because an 82-year-old widow finally understood she wasn't forgotten, she was positioned. Your pain has been your preparation. Your isolation has been your consecration. Your waiting has been your training. And the very struggles that made you feel disqualified are precisely what qualified you for what God is about to release through you. You thought your health challenges were punishment, but God was building your compassion for others who suffer. You thought your financial struggles were failure, but heaven was teaching you to trust divine provision over human security. You thought your loneliness was abandonment, but the Father was developing your intimacy with Him in the secret place. Every tear you've cried in secret has been collected in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you've whispered in the dark has been recorded in eternal archives. Every time you got back up when staying down would have been easier, that wasn't human resilience. That was divine DNA activating in your bloodstream. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul right now. The enemy knows what time it is. He knows that when God's senior saints finally wake up to their authority, when they stop apologizing for taking up space and start occupying the territory God gave them, when they stop believing lies about their limitations and start operating in their divine assignment, kingdoms shift. That's why the attacks have been so intense lately. That's why the loneliness has felt so crushing. That's why the doubt has been so loud. Because hell recognizes what's stirring in your spirit, and they're terrified of what happens when you finally remember who you are. In just a few minutes, I'm going to show you the hidden mark that's been on your life since before you were born. The spiritual signature that explains why your journey has been so different, so difficult, so deliberately designed by heaven itself. And when you see it, when you finally understand why the enemy has fought you so hard for so long, everything about your past is going to make perfect sense. But first, I need to ask you a question that will determine everything about your future. You know what breaks my heart? It's watching God's chosen ones walk through life thinking they're ordinary when heaven has been whispering their name since before time began. Listen to me carefully, dear one. What you've been calling your struggles, your sensitivity, your inability to fit into this world's mold, that's not your weakness. That's your qualification. God doesn't trust his most sacred assignments to people who've never been tested in fire. Jeremiah 1-5 declares something that will shatter every lie you've believed about yourself. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Not suggested you. Not hoped you might be useful. Set you apart. Past tense. Already done. Sealed before your first breath. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. When God sets someone apart, he doesn't just choose them randomly. He chooses them because he's seen something in their spirit that can handle what's coming. And chosen one, what's coming requires someone who's been refined by pressure. It's like a master craftsman placing a priceless heirloom in your hands, but it's wrapped in ordinary paper so the world underestimates it. That's you. That's your life. What looks ordinary to everyone else carries extraordinary purpose in heaven's economy. You've been walking around thinking you're damaged goods when you're actually God's secret weapon. Let me show you the 3 unmistakable marks that prove God has trusted you with something sacred. The first mark is your ability to discern. You feel things others miss, don't you? You walk into a room and immediately sense the spiritual temperature. You know when someone's lying before they finish their sentence. You've always been the one who sees beneath the surface, and it's exhausted you because most people live on the shallow end. That's not a curse, that's divine equipment. God gave you spiritual radar because the assignment he's trusting you with requires someone who can navigate in the unseen realm. 1 Corinthians 2:14 tells us, "The person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from God's Spirit. But you do. You always have. That sensitivity that made you feel different. That's your qualification certificate from heaven." The second mark is your unique life experiences. You've been through hell, haven't you? Lost people you couldn't afford to lose. Survived betrayals that should have destroyed you. Walked through valleys so dark you couldn't see your own hand in front of your face. And somehow, miraculously, you're still here. Still believing. Still fighting. You think that pain was pointless? You think those tears were wasted? Let me tell you something that's going to change everything. God allowed you to walk through what would break ordinary people because he was preparing you to carry something that requires extraordinary strength. Your scars aren't evidence of your failure. They're proof of your survival training. Every tear you've cried has been collected in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you've whispered in desperation has been recorded in eternal archives. Every time you chose to trust God when your circumstances screamed the opposite, that was you proving you could handle divine assignments that lesser vessels would crumble under. The third mark, and this is urgent, is the window of timing, this season. Not next year when you feel more prepared, not when your bank account looks better, not when your health improves. Right now, while you're listening to my voice, while your spirit is stirring, while that familiar fire is burning in your chest again. Esther 4:14 contains one of the most terrifying verses in all of Scripture. If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from another place. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Do you hear what Mordecai was telling her? Esther, this is your moment. If you miss it, God will still accomplish his will, but you'll forfeit your role in the story. That's what I'm telling you right now. This is your moment. You're such a time as this season. God has been orchestrating events, moving people, shifting circumstances for years to bring you to this exact point where your preparation meets your assignment. Every closed door redirected you here. Every delay positioned you here. Every test qualified you here. But here's the terrifying truth that should light a fire under your spirit. Divine windows have expiration dates. The children of Israel stood at the edge of their promised land and hesitated, just hesitated. And that moment of doubt cost them 40 years in the wilderness. 40 years of watching their dreams circle the same mountain. How many more years are you going to let fear cost you? How many more opportunities are you going to watch pass by while you wait for perfect conditions that will never come? Stop right now. I need you to do something. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Get a pen, get a piece of paper, and write down the one thing God has been nudging you to do. The thing that keeps coming back to your mind at 3 a.m. The dream that won't die. The calling that makes your spirit restless. Write it down. Right now, because what you write down isn't just words on paper. It's your covenant with heaven. It's your declaration that you're ready to step into what God has been preparing you for your entire life. The question that's burning in heaven's throne room right now is this: will you finally stop running from your calling and start running toward it? Dear chosen one, let me tell you something that will shake you to your very core. Right now, as you're sitting there listening to my voice, there's a spiritual countdown happening in the heavens above you. And most people, even faithful believers, have no idea that divine opportunities come with expiration dates. You see, we've been told that God's patience is endless, that His timing is always perfect, that we can take our sweet time responding to His call. But that's only half the truth. Yes, God is patient. Yes, His love never fails. But His windows of opportunity, they open and they close with the precision of a Swiss watch. Let me take you back to one of the most heartbreaking moments in biblical history. Numbers chapter 14. The Israelites stood at the very edge of their promised land. They could see it. They could smell the milk and honey. They had the divine green light from Almighty God Himself. All they had to do was walk forward and possess what had already been given to them. But they hesitated. They sent spies. They took a committee vote. They analyzed the giants instead of remembering their giant-killing God. And that hesitation, that fatal pause, cost them 40 years in the wilderness. 40 years. An entire generation died wandering in circles because they couldn't recognize their moment. Think about that for a second. 40 years of eating the same manna, 40 years of watching their children grow up homeless. 40 years of regret, knowing they had been within arm's reach of their destiny and let fear talk them out of it. But here's what breaks my heart even more. Some of you watching this right now are living your own version of that wilderness. You've been circling the same mountain for years, even decades, because when God said go, you said wait. When heaven said now, you said not yet. And the enemy? He's been laughing at your hesitation because he knows something you're just beginning to understand. Delayed obedience is disobedience. Look at King Saul. 1 Samuel 15 tells us the tragic story of a man who lost his entire kingdom because he thought partial obedience was good enough. God gave him a clear command: destroy everything belonging to the Amalekites. But Saul decided to edit God's instructions. He kept the best sheep, spared the king, and thought his good intentions would cover his incomplete obedience. Samuel's words to him still echo through eternity: to obey is better than sacrifice. Saul learned too late that when God gives you marching orders, He's not looking for your suggestions or improvements. He's looking for your immediate, complete surrender. Now, let me paint you a picture that will help you understand the spiritual realm. Opportunities in the spirit are like tides on the Hudson River. When the tide is high, every boat in the harbor can launch into deep waters. The smallest dinghy and the mightiest yacht, they all have access to the open sea. But if you wait, if you hesitate, if you think you'll catch the next tide, you might find yourself stuck in the sand for hours. And here's the terrifying truth: some tides don't come back the same way twice. I'm talking to the 70-year-old grandmother who's felt God tugging at her heart to start that ministry for broken women. You keep saying, "I'm too old," but God is saying, "You're finally ready." Every day you delay, another woman drowns in despair who could have been saved by your testimony. I'm speaking to the 85-year-old grandfather who's been carrying a story of God's faithfulness for 6 decades. You think nobody wants to hear from someone your age, but there's a generation desperately hungry for authentic wisdom. Your silence is robbing them of hope. Listen to me carefully. Last month, I received a letter from an 82-year-old woman named Margaret from Buffalo. She told me that 3 years ago, at 79, she felt God calling her to write letters of encouragement to people in nursing homes. She almost dismissed it. Who am I? She thought. I'm nobody special. But something in her spirit wouldn't let her rest. So she started with 1 letter, then 5, then 50. Today, Margaret's ministry has touched over 15,000 elderly souls across New York State. Nursing homes are requesting her letters. Families are writing to thank her for bringing joy back to their loved ones' faces. But here's the miracle. Margaret's grandson, who had been addicted to drugs for 8 years, saw his grandmother's courage and surrendered his life to Christ. Her obedience didn't just change her generation, it rescued the next one. That's what happens when you stop calculating and start obeying. Your yes doesn't just transform your life, it creates a generational ripple that touches people you'll never meet this side of heaven. But Margaret told me something that should terrify every believer. She said, "Pastor, I almost let that calling die with me. I almost went to my grave carrying a ministry that could have healed thousands." How many miracles are buried in our cemeteries because God's people thought they had more time? How many breakthroughs died with their carriers because someone was waiting for perfect conditions that never came? You see, the enemy's greatest weapon isn't temptation, it's procrastination. He doesn't need to make you rebellious. He just needs to make you wait. Because while you're waiting for the perfect moment, someone else is dying without the very thing God put in your hands to give them. So let me ask you a question that should echo in your soul long after this message ends. If God says go, what's one step you can take before sundown tonight? Not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel more prepared. Tonight. Because somewhere in this broken world, there's someone whose miracle is connected to your obedience, and every day you delay is another day they remain in darkness. What is God asking you to do that you've been putting off? Write it down. Declare it. Stop hiding behind your age, your fears, your excuses, because the clock is ticking and heaven is waiting for your answer. Dear chosen one, I need you to stop for a moment and really look at your life. Not the highlight reel you show the world, but the real story. The one with chapters of heartbreak, seasons of silence, years when you wondered if God had moved without forwarding address. You've carried pain that had no name, buried dreams that felt too sacred to speak aloud. You've sat in hospital waiting rooms, stood at gravesides, and stared at bank statements wondering if this is all there is. You've watched your children grow distant, your body grow weary, your hope grow thin, and through it all, you've whispered the same desperate prayer, God, do you even see me? But what if I told you that every single tear you've shed, every sleepless night you've endured, every moment you felt invisible was actually God weaving something magnificent? Your life is like a tapestry, beloved. For 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've been staring at the backside, nothing but knots and tangles, loose threads and dark patches. It looked like chaos. It felt like punishment. You questioned if there was any design at all, but God just turned it over. Look at the picture He's been weaving all along. That rejection that crushed your spirit at 30, it redirected you toward the very people who needed your particular brand of healing. That financial collapse that left you eating beans from a can, it taught you to trust God's provision when everything else fails. That marriage that ended in betrayal, it gave you the compassion to reach hearts that traditional counselors could never touch. You weren't forgotten, dear one. You were being forged. The Hebrew word for chosen is bakar. It means to be tested, examined, and selected after careful consideration. God didn't choose you because your life was easy. He chose you because your life prepared you for something extraordinary. Think about Moses, 80 years old when God called him from a burning bush. 80. The world would have said he was finished, past his prime, too old for new assignments. But God said, now you're ready. Now you understand leadership, rejection, and dependence on me. Think about Anna the prophetess. Luke 2:36 tells us she was 84 years old, widowed after only 7 years of marriage. 84 years of waiting, praying, believing. Most people would say she wasted her life in that temple. But when baby Jesus arrived, she was the first to proclaim the Messiah to all who looked for redemption in Jerusalem. Your age isn't your disqualification, it's your certification. Every gray hair is a stripe of honor. Every wrinkle is a line of wisdom. Every slow step carries the weight of tested faith. But here's what will shock you to your core. God has been protecting you all these years because what He's about to release through you is so powerful, so earth-shaking, that if it had come earlier, it would have destroyed you. You needed the character that only comes from walking through fire. You needed the compassion that only comes from your own breaking. You needed the authority that only comes from surviving what should have killed you. Right now, as I speak these words, something is stirring in the heavenly realm. Angels are taking new positions. Divine appointments are being arranged. Resources are being redirected. Because your season of preparation is ending, and your season of demonstration is beginning. You are not forgotten. You are not finished. You are the ones heaven is counting on. While younger generations chase success, you carry significance. While they build careers, you build legacies. While they seek platforms, you have been given purpose that echoes through eternity. God trusts you with assignments He would never give to the untested. He's placing dreams in your heart that seem impossible at your age, because impossible is where He specializes. He's whispering visions that make you feel foolish, because foolish things confound the wise. 1 Corinthians 1:27 declares, God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. You think your arthritis disqualifies you? Your diabetes? Your need for reading glasses? No. Your physical limitations are God's invitation to display supernatural strength. This is your moment of divine intersection, the place where your preparation meets God's revelation, where your experience meets His anointing, where your faithfulness meets His favor. But you have to choose. You have to decide right now whether you'll believe the lie that your best days are behind you, or embrace the truth that your appointed days are ahead of you. The enemy has been whispering 3 specific lies to keep you sidelined. You're too old. You're too broken. You've missed your chance. But I'm here as a voice from heaven to tell you, those are lies from the pit of hell. You're not too old. You're perfectly seasoned. You're not too broken. You're beautifully surrendered. You haven't missed your chance. You're standing in it right now. So I'm going to speak over you with the authority that comes from knowing God's heart. You are chosen. You are called. You are commissioned for such a time as this. The dreams stirring in your heart aren't nostalgia, they're prophecy. The fire burning in your chest isn't the last ember. It's the pilot light for a revival that will shock your community. Stand up right where you are. Look at me through this screen and say these words with everything in you. I receive it. I will walk in it. Say it again. I receive it. I will walk in it. Because the God who called Moses at 80, who used Anna at 84, who gave Sarah a baby at 90, is the same God calling your name today. But here's the urgent truth that will determine everything. This window of opportunity won't stay open forever. Divine timing operates on heaven's calendar, not your comfort zone. Close your eyes for a moment, chosen one. I want you to see something that will change everything. Picture this. It's 18 months from today. You're sitting in your favorite chair, but something's different. There's a peace in your spirit you haven't felt in decades. Your phone rings. It's your prodigal son, the one who hasn't called in 3 years. His voice is trembling as he says, Mom, I don't know what happened, but I can't stop thinking about you, about God, about home. Can I come see you? That's not wishful thinking, dear one. That's prophecy waiting to unfold through your obedience. You see, when you step into what God is calling you to do right now, you don't just change your life. You become a catalyst for divine intervention in ways you can't even imagine. That ministry you've been afraid to start, that book you've been too scared to write, that reconciliation you've been avoiding, it's not just about you. It's about the ripple effect of one life surrendered to heaven's agenda. Let me paint this picture clearer. Your granddaughter, the one struggling with addiction, suddenly finds herself in a treatment center where someone hands her a book, your book, the one you thought nobody would read. As she turns the pages, she recognizes her grandmother's voice speaking life into her darkness. 3 months later, she's clean, whole, and leading a recovery group for other young women. Your neighbor, the bitter widow who's been your enemy for 15 years, watches as your life transforms. She sees the joy returning to your eyes, the spring in your step, the supernatural peace radiating from your presence. One Tuesday morning, she knocks on your door with tears streaming down her face, asking, "What's different about you? I need what you have." This isn't fantasy. This is what happens when heaven's chosen ones stop hiding behind fear and step into their divine assignments. But here's where it gets staggering. Remember Joseph? Genesis 41 tells us he was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh. 30. Most people today think their best years are behind them by 50, yet Joseph saved entire nations because he recognized his moment and acted in his season. When famine threatened to destroy Egypt and the surrounding regions, it was Joseph's obedience years earlier that positioned him to preserve millions of lives. Your obedience today isn't just about your personal breakthrough. It's about the preservation of destinies you'll never meet face to face, but whose lives will be forever altered because you said yes when heaven called. Can you feel that stirring in your chest right now? That's not coincidence. That's confirmation. Your spirit recognizes truth when it hears it because it remembers who you really are underneath all the doubt and delay. Imagine walking into your family reunion next Christmas. The family that once whispered about your failures now watches in amazement as cousins, siblings, and relatives seek you out for prayer, for wisdom, for that inexplicable peace that flows from your presence. The woman they once pitied has become the matriarch they now revere. Picture your community 5 years from now. That empty lot where the old church stood. Now it's a thriving center of hope because you had the courage to answer the call to build. Families that were fractured are now whole. Young people who were lost in addiction are now leading worship, all because one senior citizen decided that 75 wasn't too old to birth something eternal. But I need to tell you something that might shock you. Right now, as I'm speaking these words, there are invisible forces fighting to keep this vision from becoming reality. The enemy of your soul is working overtime to fill your mind with every reason why this can't happen. He's whispering that you're too old, too tired, too late, too damaged, too ordinary. Those whispers, they're not random thoughts. They're strategic warfare against your destiny. The devil knows something about you that you've forgotten. He knows that if you ever fully wake up to who you are and what you carry, his reign of terror in your family line is over. He knows that your yes doesn't just unlock your blessing. It triggers a supernatural chain reaction that dismantles generational curses and establishes generational favor. Here's what terrifies hell about your obedience. When seniors step into their calling, they bring something young people can't offer: the authority of tested faith. You've walked through valleys that would have destroyed weaker souls. You've survived storms that would have shipwrecked others. You've learned to trust God in the dark. And that kind of faith is dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. Joseph saved nations not because he was young and energetic, but because he was seasoned by 13 years of betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. His greatest assignment came not in spite of his suffering, but because of it. Every tear he shed in that Egyptian prison was preparing him for the day he would prevent millions from shedding tears of starvation. Your tears haven't been wasted either. They've been seeds planted in the soil of your character, preparing you for a harvest that will feed hungry souls for generations. But here's the question that will haunt you if you don't answer it correctly. What if you miss your Joseph moment? What if the very breakthrough that could save your family, your community, your legacy, what if it passes you by because you were too afraid to believe that God still had plans for your life? I can see it now. I can see you 6 months from today, looking back on this very moment, this very message, knowing it was the turning point. The moment everything shifted because you finally said yes to the assignment you've been carrying in your spirit for years. There's something else I need to tell you, one final key that unlocks why God trusts you with this assignment above all others. But before I reveal it, I need to know you're still with me. If this vision is stirring something deep in your soul, if you can see yourself in this future I'm describing, drop a comment right now. Tell me what you see when you imagine your life fully surrendered to God's plan, because what I'm about to share next will explain why your specific story, your unique pain, your particular journey has been preparing you for a calling so significant that heaven has been holding its breath, waiting for you to step into it. Beloved, we've journeyed together through the signs, through the warnings, through the testimonies of those who stepped into their divine moments. But now we arrive at the secret that heaven has been whispering since the beginning of time, the key that unlocks every door, breaks every chain, and transforms every impossibility into inevitability. Are you ready for this? Because what I'm about to reveal will either ignite your spirit or terrify your flesh. The personal key isn't a prayer formula. It isn't a special blessing or a magic word. The key that God is trusting you with right now is your yes. Your immediate, unconditional, unqualified yes. But here's where most people stumble. They think yes means yes when I feel ready. They think yes means yes when I have more money. They think yes means yes when the situation is perfect. That's not yes. That's negotiation. God's yes demands nothing from you except surrender. No conditions, no timeline, no safety net. Just pure, raw, trembling obedience that says, Lord, I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know what comes next. But if you're calling me forward, I'm moving. Do you understand what that kind of yes did for a 90-year-old woman named Sarah? When God promised her a child, at an age when her body had given up hope, she could have said, God, this doesn't make biological sense. Instead, she said yes to the impossible, and Isaac was born. One yes that changed the trajectory of nations. What about an 80-year-old shepherd named Moses? When God called him from a burning bush to deliver 2 million slaves, he could have said, God, I'm too old, I stutter, I'm nobody special. But his yes shook Pharaoh's kingdom and parted the Red Sea. Your age isn't your disqualification, chosen one. Your age is your authentication. You've lived long enough to know that when God speaks, you better listen. 2 Corinthians 6:2 declares with thunderous authority, now is the time of God's favor, now is the day of salvation. Not tomorrow when you feel braver, not next month when you have more resources. Now, this moment, this heartbeat, this breath you're taking right now. But let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many knots have you given God in your lifetime? How many times have you heard his voice calling you forward and responded with, not now, not me, not ready? How many divine appointments have you postponed until they expired? Every knot you've given God has been a seed of regret planted in the soil of your future. And now, at this stage of your life, you're harvesting a field of what-ifs and if-onlys. But here's the miracle of divine grace. God is giving you another chance, right here, right now. Your not can become your yes, and your yes can rewrite your legacy. Think about this, dear one. You are not just choosing for yourself in this moment. You are writing the chapter that your grandchildren will read about your faith. They will either say, my grandmother was the one who finally said yes to God, or they will say, my grandmother almost stepped into her calling but hesitated. Which story do you want them to tell? Your yes isn't just about you. It's about the generation watching you. It's about your adult children who need to see that it's never too late to trust God completely. It's about your community that needs to witness what happens when someone with silver hair and seasoned faith finally stops playing it safe. The enemy has been whispering in your ear for decades. You're too old. You've missed your chance. God has moved on to younger people. But I'm here to tell you that's a lie straight from the pit of hell. God doesn't retire his generals. He promotes them. But promotion requires a yes that costs you something, a yes that makes your flesh tremble, a yes that forces you to depend completely on his strength because yours isn't enough. Moses was 80 when he said yes. Caleb was 85 when he demanded his mountain. Anna was 84 when she recognized the Messiah. Your birth certificate isn't your limitation, it's your credentials. Right now, in this very moment, heaven is holding its breath. Angels are leaning forward, the cloud of witnesses is watching, and God himself is waiting for your response to his call. You've felt it stirring, haven't you? That restless knowing that there's still something more, that burning in your chest that says your story isn't over. That divine dissatisfaction with settling for less than what God has prepared for you. That's not your imagination. That's the Holy Spirit preparing you for your yes moment. But understand this, if you don't say yes now, if you let this moment pass, if you choose comfort over calling one more time, you may not get another opportunity like this. Divine windows don't stay open forever. This is your crossroads, chosen one, your Red Sea moment, your burning bush encounter, your such a time as this instant. The question that will echo through eternity is not whether God is faithful. The question is whether you will be found faithful when he calls your name. So I'm asking you to do something right now that will either terrify you or liberate you. I want you to stand up, right where you are. If you're in your living room, stand up. If you're in your bedroom, stand up. If you can't stand, sit up straight and lift your hands. Look toward heaven and speak these words with everything in you. Yes, Lord, I step now. Say it like you mean it. Say it like your destiny depends on it. Say it like your grandchildren's future hangs in the balance. Yes, Lord, I step now. Your yes is about to unlock everything God has been preparing for you. Are you ready to find out what's on the other side of surrender? But there's something deeper happening here, chosen one. Something that will shake you to your very core. You thought this was just about your personal breakthrough. You thought God was simply trying to get you unstuck from where you've been. But I need to tell you something that's going to change everything about how you see this moment. You are no longer just holding your own breakthrough. God is putting a trumpet in your hands because your yes is not just for you, it's a signal for others still trapped in darkness. Listen to what the Lord spoke to Ezekiel in chapter 33, verse 7. Son of man, I have made you a watchman for the people of Israel, so hear the word I speak and give them warning from me. A watchman. Do you understand what that means? In ancient times, the watchman stood on the highest wall of the city. His job wasn't to fight the battle himself. His job was to see what was coming and sound the alarm. His voice could save thousands of lives, or his silence could doom an entire city. That's you right now. God has positioned you on the wall of this generation. He's given you eyes to see what others cannot see. He's given you a voice that carries further than you realize. And dear one, there are people in your family, in your neighborhood, in your workplace who are about to walk into destruction, and they need you to sound the alarm. Some of you have been silent for so long because you thought your voice no longer mattered. Maybe you tried to speak truth years ago and people mocked you. Maybe you shared your heart and they called you crazy. Maybe you stood up for what's right and they pushed you down. So you retreated. You pulled back. You convinced yourself that someone younger, someone more educated, someone with a bigger platform should be the one to speak. But that's exactly what the enemy wanted. He knew he couldn't stop your calling, so he convinced you to mute it. But God says, speak. He says, speak. He says, speak. Your silence is not protecting anyone. Your quietness is not keeping peace. While you've been staying small to make others comfortable, souls are dying. While you've been hiding your light under a basket of insecurity, people are stumbling in darkness. Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many people in your life right now are making destructive choices because they've never heard the voice of someone who's walked with God for decades? How many of your grandchildren are following paths that lead to destruction because no one with spiritual authority has spoken truth into their lives? You think your age disqualifies you. Moses was 80 when God called him to confront Pharaoh. You think your past mistakes disqualify you? David was an adulterer and murderer, yet God called him a man after his own heart. You think your education level disqualifies you? The disciples were called unlearned men, yet they turned the world upside down. God doesn't need your perfection. He needs your willingness to be his voice in a generation that has forgotten how to hear from heaven. Right now, there's a family member who needs to hear from someone who's seen God's faithfulness through decades of storms. There's a neighbor who's about to make a decision that will wreck their life, and they need someone with your wisdom to speak up. There's a young person in your sphere who's drowning in confusion, and they need the clarity that only comes from someone who's walked with God long enough to know his character. But here's what terrifies hell about you finally understanding your role as a watchman. When you speak, it's not just your voice they hear. It's the voice of someone who's been tested by fire and came out refined. It's the voice of someone who's seen miracles with their own eyes. It's the voice of someone who knows the difference between religion and relationship. That kind of voice doesn't just give advice. That kind of voice carries authority. That kind of voice shifts atmospheres. That kind of voice breaks generational curses and speaks life into dead situations. The trumpet is in your hands. The question is, will you sound it? Every day you remain silent, the enemy gains more ground. Every week you stay hidden, more souls slip into darkness. Every month you hesitate, another generation grows up without hearing the testimony of God's faithfulness from someone who's lived it. This is not about preaching from a pulpit. This is about being brave enough to speak truth in your living room. This is about having the courage to share your testimony at the grocery store. This is about refusing to let another family gathering pass without someone speaking words of life instead of words of death. God didn't preserve you through all those battles just so you could sit quietly in the corner during the final fight. He kept you here because this generation needs a voice that hell cannot silence, a testimony that darkness cannot deny, a faith that fear cannot shake. The blood of souls may be required at the watchman's hands if he sees danger coming and doesn't sound the alarm. But when the watchman is faithful to his calling, he delivers his own soul and becomes an instrument of deliverance for others. Right now, I need you to make a declaration that's going to echo through the spiritual realm. I need you to say it out loud, wherever you are. Lord, I will not be silent. Say it again. Lord, I will not be silent. Because the moment you break your silence, you break someone else's chains. The moment you find your voice, you give voice to the voiceless. But what happens when you finally understand that God's third trust goes beyond even your voice and touches something so sacred that heaven itself holds its breath? Dear chosen one, I need to tell you something that might cut deep, but it could save your spiritual life. You've been walking through what feels like the longest, darkest valley of your existence, haven't you? For months, maybe years, you've felt like God went silent, like he packed up his presence and moved to someone else's address. You've prayed until your voice was hoarse, cried until your tears ran dry, and still nothing but echoing silence. Let me ask you something that's going to shake you to your core. What if that valley wasn't God abandoning you? What if it was God preparing you for something so magnificent that it required you to be stripped of everything familiar, everything comfortable, everything you thought you could depend on? You see, there's a prophet in Scripture who knew exactly what you're feeling right now. His name was Elijah, and in 1 Kings 19, we find him sitting under a broom tree in the wilderness, so broken that he prayed for God to take his life. This is the same man who had just called down fire from heaven, the same prophet who had defeated 450 false prophets on Mount Carmel, the same warrior who had outrun chariots in supernatural strength. But now, he was ready to quit, ready to give up, ready to tell God, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore." Does that sound familiar? Have you been there? Have you sat in your own wilderness, wondering if you misheard God's voice, wondering if you imagined your calling, wondering if you're just a foolish old person clinging to dreams that died decades ago? I met a woman named Dorothy just last year. 83 years old, served in ministry for over 50 years. She'd raised 5 children, buried 2 husbands, and poured her life into her church until the day they asked her to step down. "We need fresh blood," they said. "Younger leadership." Dorothy told me she sat in her empty house that night and whispered the same words Elijah spoke. "Lord, just take me home. I have nothing left to give." But here's what Dorothy didn't know. Here's what Elijah couldn't see. Here's what you can't understand while you're walking through your own valley of shadows. The valley you've been walking was never your graveyard. It was your training ground. Every betrayal that cut you deeper than a surgeon's knife was teaching you to trust God alone. Every door that slammed in your face was redirecting you toward the door only you can open. Every season of silence was developing your ability to hear God's whisper above the world's noise. You think you've been forgotten, but you've been forged. You think you've been abandoned, but you've been appointed. You think you've been buried, but you've been planted. Think about a seed for a moment. When it's first placed in the ground, it's surrounded by nothing but darkness, covered by dirt, pressed down by soil. If that seed could speak, it would probably cry out, "This is it. This is where I die. I can't see the sun. I can't feel the warmth. God has forgotten me." But what's really happening in that darkness? The seed is breaking open. Its hard shell is cracking. Its roots are growing deeper. Its stem is pushing upward with a force that will eventually break through concrete. The darkness isn't destroying the seed. The darkness is developing it. And right now, chosen one, while you've been feeling buried, God has been developing something in you that could never grow in the sunlight of easy circumstances. While you've been feeling forgotten, heaven has been preparing you for an assignment so weighty, so significant, that it required you to be strengthened in the secret place. Dorothy didn't know it that night when she prayed to die, but God was about to use her story of rejection to comfort hundreds of seniors who felt cast aside by a youth-obsessed culture. Her valley became her platform, her pain became her ministry, her breakdown became her breakthrough. But here's what terrifies me about your situation right now. Here's what keeps me awake at night praying for people just like you. Some of you are so close to your breakthrough that you could touch it, but you're about to give up just days before the dawn. Some of you have endured the entire winter, and you're about to walk away just as spring is breaking through the ground. You've been tested not because God doesn't trust you, but because He trusts you so completely that He's willing to risk your temporary discomfort for your eternal impact. You've been refined not because you were worthless, but because you're so valuable that heaven wanted to remove every impurity that could limit your effectiveness. The enemy has been whispering lies in your ear. You're too old. You've missed your chance. God's moved on to younger people. Your time is over. But I hear something different echoing from the throne room of heaven. I hear the voice of the Ancient of Days declaring over your life, "The test is almost over. The valley is ending. The mantle is coming." In just a moment, I'm going to show you the prophetic sign that reveals your valley season is ending and the new mantle of authority that's being placed on your shoulders. But first, I need you to answer this question honestly. Are you going to let the pain of your past define the purpose of your future, or are you finally ready to discover why God trusted you with a valley so deep that only someone of your caliber could survive it? Beloved, we've reached the moment heaven has been orchestrating since before you drew your first breath. What you're about to receive isn't just revelation, it's transformation. And I need you to understand something that will shake you to your core. The garment you've been wearing for decades is about to be stripped away and replaced with something you never imagined you were worthy to carry. Look with me at 2 Kings chapter 2. Picture this scene. The greatest prophet Israel had ever known, Elijah, is about to be taken up to heaven. But before he goes, there's a transfer that must happen. His spiritual son, Elisha, follows him, refusing to leave his side. They come to the Jordan River, and Elijah takes his mantle, his cloak of authority, and strikes the water. The river parts. 2 men walk across on dry ground. But here's what most people miss about this story. Elisha didn't just want Elijah's blessing. He wanted a double portion of his spirit. Double, not the same power, twice the power. And when Elijah is taken up in that whirlwind of fire, what falls to the ground? His mantle, the very garment that carried the authority of heaven. Chosen one, I'm about to tell you something that's going to revolutionize how you see this moment in your life. That mantle didn't fall randomly. It fell exactly where Elisha was standing, exactly where someone was positioned to receive it. And right now, as I speak these words over your life, there's a mantle falling from heaven with your name written on it. But first, let me ask you something that's going to cut deep into your soul. How long have you been wearing the wrong garment? How many years have you dressed yourself in survival when God designed you for authority? How many decades have you clothed yourself in just getting by when heaven tailored you for breakthrough? The garment you wore in the last season was survival. You wrapped yourself in just making it through another day, another month, another year. You stitched together pieces of disappointment and called it clothing. You hemmed your dreams with fear and called it wisdom. But tonight, God is laying a new mantle over your shoulders: authority, vision, and divine assignment. I want you to do something right now. Don't think about it. Don't question it. Place your hands on your shoulders. Feel the weight that's about to settle there. Because what's descending on you isn't just responsibility, it's recognition. Heaven is recognizing that you've survived the wilderness long enough to be trusted with the promised land. New authority flowing through your bloodstream. New vision clearing the fog from your spiritual eyes. New assignment igniting fire in your bones. New authority over circumstances that used to control you. New vision to see possibilities where others see problems. New assignment that will make your family name echo through eternity. But here's the part that's going to shock you. This mantle comes with a price. When Elisha picked up Elijah's cloak, he couldn't go back to his old life. He couldn't return to plowing fields when he was called to part seas. He couldn't settle for small when he was commissioned for supernatural. Dear one, the moment you receive this mantle, everything changes. Your tolerance for mediocrity dies. Your appetite for average gets buried. Your willingness to waste time disappears forever. Because you'll finally understand what you're carrying. Moses carried a mantle of deliverance. David carried a mantle of worship and warfare. Esther carried a mantle of courage and timing. Joseph carried a mantle of interpretation and administration. What's the mantle God is placing on your shoulders tonight? Some of you are receiving the mantle of healing. You've been wounded so deeply that you can now heal wounds no one else can touch. Others are receiving the mantle of intercession. Your tears have qualified you to stand in the gap for a generation that's forgotten how to pray. Still others are receiving the mantle of wisdom. Your pain has become a university degree in trusting God when nothing makes sense. But I need to tell you something urgent. This mantle won't wait for you to feel ready. It won't pause while you figure out your qualifications. It's falling right now, in this moment, and you have seconds to position yourself to catch it. Think about this. What if Moses had said, "I'm not eloquent enough"? What if Esther had said, "I'm just a woman in a man's world"? What if David had said, "I'm just a shepherd boy"? Their mantles would have fallen on someone else. Their assignments would have been given to others. Their names would have been forgotten. Your hands are still on your shoulders. Can you feel it? The weight of destiny settling on you like a royal robe. The authority of heaven wrapping around you like armor. The assignment of eternity positioning itself across your back. This is your Elisha moment. The prophet who trained you is being taken up. The season that prepared you is ending. And the mantle that will define your legacy is falling from heaven's throne room straight into your waiting arms. But here's the question that will determine whether this moment becomes your breakthrough or your regret. Will you pick it up? Will you wrap yourself in the authority heaven is offering? Will you step into the assignment that has your fingerprints all over it? Because in 60 seconds, I'm going to show you exactly what happens when someone refuses the mantle and why that choice echoes through generations, leaving families and communities without the deliverance that could have been theirs. Dear chosen one, I need to shatter a lie that's been stealing your destiny for decades. You've been waiting for God to send you somewhere else, haven't you? Waiting for Him to move you to a different city, a different church, a different circumstance before you can finally step into your calling. You've convinced yourself that your purpose is somewhere out there, in some distant place where everything will finally make sense. But what if I told you that's the enemy's greatest deception? What if the very place you've been trying to escape is exactly where heaven has positioned you for maximum impact? Listen to me carefully. Your zip code isn't your limitation, it's your assignment. Your neighborhood isn't your prison, it's your pulpit. The same living room where you've cried yourself to sleep is the sanctuary where God wants to use you to heal others. You think you need a platform, but God has already given you one. You think you need a title, but heaven has already crowned you. You think you need permission, but the Almighty has already commissioned you right where you are. Let me tell you about Anna, Luke chapter 2. This woman was 84 years old, and for decades, she never left the temple. Day and night, fasting and praying in the same four walls. People probably thought she was wasting her life. Anna, why don't you travel? Why don't you start a ministry? Why don't you do something bigger? But Anna understood something that most believers never grasp. She knew that faithfulness in your assigned place creates a magnetic pull for divine encounters. She didn't chase after God's presence, she cultivated it where she was. And then it happened. Baby Jesus walked through those temple doors, and Anna became the first person to proclaim the Messiah to all who were looking for redemption in Jerusalem. Her faithfulness in the ordinary moment positioned her for the most extraordinary encounter in human history. You see, lighthouses don't chase ships. They stand and shine, and the lost find them. How many of you have been running from your post? How many of you have been looking over the fence at someone else's ministry, someone else's mission field, convinced that God's will for your life is anywhere but where you are right now? Stop running. Your breakthrough isn't in another location. It's in your location. That difficult neighbor who makes your life miserable. They're not your problem, they're your assignment. That broken family member who keeps disappointing you. They're not your burden, they're your mission field. That job that drains you, that church that frustrates you, that community that seems hopeless. You weren't placed there by accident. You were positioned there by divine appointment. But here's what breaks my heart. While you've been waiting for God to move you somewhere significant, you've missed the significance of where you already are. While you've been praying for a bigger stage, heaven has been waiting for you to shine on the stage you're already on. Your living room can become holy ground when your prayers shake heaven. Your kitchen table can become an altar when you lay hands on your family and break generational curses. Your front porch can become a counseling center when you speak life into your neighbor's broken dreams. Do you realize that Moses encountered the burning bush while doing his regular job, tending sheep in the wilderness? He wasn't at a conference. He wasn't at a revival. He was doing ordinary work in an ordinary place when the extraordinary happened. David was anointed king while doing chores, bringing lunch to his brothers on a battlefield. Joseph received his dreams while living with his family. Ruth found her destiny while gleaning in Boaz's field, not while searching for it in distant lands. God specializes in transforming ordinary places into launching pads for extraordinary purposes, but only for those who stop despising their current assignment and start embracing it as divine positioning. Here's the urgent truth that should shake you to your core. Every day you spend waiting for a different location is a day you're not impacting the souls God has strategically placed within your reach. Every week you postpone your local calling is a week someone in your sphere of influence goes without the light only you can shine. That coworker who's battling depression, they don't need you to move to another state to help them. They need you to speak life into their Monday morning right now. That grandchild who's making destructive choices, they don't need you to get a seminary degree to influence them. They need you to pray over them with the authority you already carry. Your mission field isn't across the ocean. It's across the street. It's across the dinner table. It's across the cubicle wall. It's wherever your feet are planted right now. But I can hear some of you arguing with me. but I don't feel qualified. I don't have training. I don't have resources. Listen to me, you're more qualified than you think. You've been in God's training program your entire life. Every struggle you've survived, every trial you've overcome, every tear you've cried, has been preparing you to minister to someone facing the exact same battle. Your scars aren't your shame, they're your credentials. Your pain isn't your past, it's your platform. Your mess isn't your mistake, it's your message, waiting to set someone else free. The question burning in my spirit right now is this: how much longer will you keep God's assignment on hold while you wait for perfect conditions in a perfect place? How many more souls will go unreached because you're convinced your calling is somewhere else? Heaven is watching, the harvest is ready, and the laborers, the real laborers, aren't the ones traveling to distant fields. They're the ones who understand that the greatest revivals start right where you are, with whatever you have, touching whoever is within your reach. So what's it going to be, chosen one? Will you finally accept your current assignment as your divine appointment? Beloved chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred journey together, I need you to carry these truths with you like precious stones in your heart. Remember this: God hasn't forgotten your address. He hasn't erased your name from heaven's list. The very fact that you're still breathing, still believing, still hungry for His voice means your assignment is far from over. You are not too old, not too late, not too broken to be used by the Almighty. Every gray hair is a crown of wisdom, every wrinkle a testament to your faithfulness, every scar evidence that you've survived what was meant to destroy you. Remember that your mission field isn't somewhere else, it's right where you are. Your living room is holy ground, your kitchen table is an altar, your neighborhood is your congregation. Stop waiting for perfect conditions and start shining with the light you already carry. And hear me clearly on this: you are not walking this path alone. The same God who called Moses from a burning bush, who anointed David in a field, who used Anna in a temple, is still working in your life right now. He's moving pieces you can't see, opening doors you haven't found yet, preparing hearts you haven't met. Even when you can't feel Him, He's there. Even when you can't see Him, He's working. But more than that, you have a family here. Look around these comments. Feel the connection in this digital sanctuary. We're not just viewers on a screen, we're warriors in the same army, carrying the same calling, fighting the same battles. When you stumble, we'll pray you back to your feet. When you doubt, we'll remind you who you are. When you feel forgotten, we'll surround you with love that reflects the heart of Christ. Before I release you into your destiny, let me ask you this: what if the very thing you've been waiting for God to change about your circumstances is exactly what He wants to use to change someone else's life? What if your current struggle is tomorrow's testimony? What if your present pain is the key to someone else's freedom? Now, wherever you are, in your living room, your bedroom, your car, I want you to close your eyes and let me speak over your life. If you can, place your hand on your heart and receive this blessing. Heavenly Father, I place my hand on the shoulder of every precious soul hearing these words. Lord, you see them, not just their struggles, but their strength, not just their pain, but their purpose, not just their failures, but their faithfulness. God, I pray that you would breathe fresh wind into their weary souls. Where they feel depleted, restore them. Where they feel forgotten, remind them of their worth. Where they feel confused about their calling, give them clarity that cuts through every doubt. Father, open doors that no man can shut. Provide resources they haven't even thought to ask for. Send divine connections that will accelerate their purpose. Give them dreams and visions that will clarify their next steps. Surround them with people who see their value, who honor their gifts, who will stand with them when the battles get fierce. Lord, I pray for supernatural strength for their bodies, peace for their minds, and fire for their spirits. Let them wake up tomorrow knowing they are loved beyond measure, chosen beyond doubt, and called beyond their current circumstances. Break every chain of limitation, silence every voice of condemnation, destroy every plan of the enemy against their destiny, And Father, use them right where they are. Make their ordinary moments extraordinary through your presence. Let their words carry weight, their prayers shake heaven, and their lives become lighthouses that guide others home to you. In Jesus' mighty name, I seal this prayer over every person, every family, every future connected to this moment. Amen. Now, I need to hear from you. In the comments below, tell me what God spoke to your heart today. Don't hold back. Your breakthrough might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Share how this message has shifted something in your spirit. Ask for prayer if you need it. This community will surround you with intercession that moves mountains. And if this word has set something on fire in your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Share this message with someone who needs to remember they're not forgotten, they're not finished, and their finest hour may be just ahead. There's someone in your life right now who's been waiting for this exact word, and you might be the vessel God uses to deliver it. If this is your first time here, welcome to the family. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because your breakthrough journey is just beginning. We're not just building a channel, we're building a movement of believers who refuse to settle, refuse to quit, and refuse to believe that God's best for their lives is in the past. Thank you for staying with me through this entire message. Thank you for opening your heart, for letting these words penetrate the sacred places where only truth can dwell. Thank you for being part of something bigger than yourself. Until we meet again, walk in the authority of who you are. You are chosen. You are called. You are never, ever alone. God bless you, warrior. Your assignment is waiting.